Good morning. Welcome, everybody. If you came on a little early, you heard this gorgeous music. And it's BJ's partner, Cindy, who is a musician, teacher, playing for us, just for us to sort of settle. And that was a wonderful experience. Thank you, Cindy. We are going to have a real adventure this morning with BJ, going out to the edges and maybe beyond the edges to explore the worlds beyond the worlds, and to visit all of the unknown places in a way. So I am very, very pleased to have BJ with us, and she's been with us before. BJ is a minister and teacher, and she has been part of our community empowerment project for quite a while, right? BJ, maybe 2 or 3 years, and lends an amazing attunement to the various levels of meaning of what is going on. And
so BJ has done many projects with us, and she studied and practices religion in both parish and academic settings, and now shares focusing and NBC as a spiritual director.
Hello, everybody. My name is Barbara VanderMeer, and I have such a gratitude for this time and space that's made possible for those of us who are helpers, who consider ourselves to be helpers in some way. It's been for me often a time out of time. Speaking with you individually and imagining you communally from the time of COVID, when this idea sprang forth and leapt from Lynn's heart, mind, and body full blown, where hundreds of us have been engaged with each other in a way that helps us to be better helpers in whatever way we are that. So gratitude first. I understand my role today to be that of someone offering a reflection for your consideration. For those of you who haven't been with us before, that idea is discussed then in the large group. You're always invited and sometimes pressured to say something in the large group. And then we have a breakout time where you will today be with one other person to think further or to feel or sense further some question that may have come up from our large discussion. Then we'll be called back to a kind of a final gathering of our senses, and we'll be sent forth for the day. I would like to introduce my spouse, Cindy Mueller, who is sitting at a piano. She did a little bit of focusing oriented music for us as we began this morning, and she didn't expect it, so I thought she did a great job considering that, especially. We also generally have an attunement, what some of us call an attunement, a time of gathering ourselves in a different way, a time when some of us close our eyes so that we can access more of ourselves as we go into a topic in a focusing way. So the focusing way to approach the subject for today. First, I just want to be sure you can hear me. If anybody can't, raise your hand. Thank you. I envisioned this presentation, this sharing, as something I would never do. I feel that it's kind of like I had a husband once who stopped drinking in the middle of our time together. And we would be somewhere and people would offer him a drink and he would say, "Oh, thanks, but I've had enough." And that's a little bit how I feel about bringing thoughts together and offering them. And mostly I've been blessed to offer them in places of trust that my name is safe in their mouths, at least in that moment, so that I can get a place more worthy of the time that you have lent to this occasion. I even took off my pajama top for the occasion, and I took my ponytail out. I have on these earphones because I have a cat who is my alter ego and is ever on me in some way. So this is so he's out of my mind. If you want to know any more about me, about the rock I stand on in considering topics like this, I invite you to just stay after and I'll answer any question. I'll just say now that when I learned to read, my mother turned to me one day and said, "Okay, now that you can read, are you going to read your Bible at night or are you going to read your Bible in the morning?" And today, after having gone to what my mother called seminary, and studied in lots of other ways, I am officially endorsed by the American Humanist Association as a humanist clergy person. And that means I am able to be hired, as I was most recently by the University of Florida, to offer consultation about to a palliative care group for a couple of years. So, the attunement. Some of us close our eyes, and you are welcome to do that. I will. As a way to come into this focusing way. First, I invite you to a kind of proprioception. Just feeling your head balanced on your torso. Just sensing your butt in the chair or your back on the bed. Just sensing your skin, the texture, the temperature. Breathing in that familiar air where I expect most of you are. And then some moments of interoception in your imagination, or perhaps even touching your own throat. That amazing mystical place where we breathe each other in and we breathe ourselves out, where we take nourishment that sustains our entire system, all the organs, the lungs, the heart, the belly, all of those organs of reproduction, creativity, pleasure, that whole thing inside. And knowing that there's hair on top of your head, at least a bit of hair for most of us. Can you feel that hair from the inside? And it's gathering what it needs to push forward, move forward, become this hair that its genetic disposition told it it was going to be. Just the feel of that. And I have my hand on my chest. You might, if you would like, join me in feeling what it is in your fingers to feel your chest. There's a kind of for me, a reaching. There's a sensation from inside my fingers of reaching out. Hmm. And safe and warm. And then knowing that we are here together, engaging in this moment, in this time, in this place. That hand on my chest makes me think of a pile of puppies sharing some limbic resonance in this place. Whether we share our faces, whether we share our voice, whatever we do here, puppies in a pile. I can just smell them. And then knowing that we come to a top that is fraught with opportunities and threats, with danger and with beauty. Understanding that there is a whole thing about the word God. There is a whole thing about this idea of AI. And there's a whole thing about how they might complement each other. Hmm. And so coming back to the room, here we are. When I was first thinking about the inevitability that I would be someday asked to talk about something, or someday called to create a TAE uh, composition of some kind, creation of some kind, I knew that I would have to do it because it's the gift that I bring to this community that must be brought forth. That's a part of the focusing way, that sometimes we are called out. And that's the only reason I'm here, is because I feel that I was called out by Katerina specifically. So let's begin with what I see as this is what came to me. I was considering the idea of the word God and what your first association might be with that word. And then I was going on. It was going to be like, then the whole thing about the word God. Until a couple of weeks ago, a few weeks back, Dan Schachter gave a beautiful Help for Helpers reflection. And at the end, he briefly referred to AI. And I asked Dan if I could share something with you guys. He gave me permission, and just to be sure I don't go off and say things he didn't really say, I want to just read you what I intend from him. Dan is wondering how Gendlin's philosophy might give us insights such that we can contribute to the current public discussion of artificial intelligence, an already polarized discussion in which some folks believe that AI may soon be capable of not only thinking and thinking independently, but also of feeling as humans feel. Dan has a small group who considered these things. And Dan told me that we need to remember that for Jinlin, feelings are things, feelings, hunches, emotions, feelings are things that can be slotted, unitized, but that the felt sense is something different. And he left us with the question to consider: what is the distinction between feelings and felt senses? Well, what I got from that was two things. First, that there might be some um, idea that even if artificial intelligence can feel as we feel, it's doubtful that artificial intelligence will ever be able to have a felt sense. That's just one thing that came through my mind. And at the same time, the idea that, well, maybe it can do so many other things. Maybe it will be able to get a felt sense. And if it can, then all the things we're worrying about are for nothing, right? Because the felt sense of the thing, this artificial intelligence, will never lead us astray. So thank you, Dan. And then, oh my gosh, for those of you who, like me, know very little about artificial intelligence and this explosion, have a look at Annecy's reflection recently, where she just sort of casually brought up these things that so enriched our understanding of what it means to be with our ancestors. Just astonishing. So that's why we have AI in here as well. So here we are with, for me, my first general notion of how can we talk about, how can we be with word God and all that it points to for each and for all of us together. And for me, it was yellow. The whole thing about God was yellow. Now, as we're going forward, your association with God, the word God, might take on a color as well. And then artificial intelligence and all that that concept might mean for me was blue, blue like this shirt. And then a Venn diagram came into my mind that there's an overlap. And that overlap was for me green. And why that matters anyway, Dan said there's a sense of urgency that each one of us who are dedicated focusers and followers of this way have an understanding of many things, anything maybe he might have meant, but that we each have an understanding of AI. Now that sounds wild, and it does to me. I do not want to give a speech about AI. too vast for me. I've studied God my whole life, but AI only about a year. But some intersection that you and I have access to as focusing beings, breathing, focusing beings, that we have an understanding. And if you follow the AI dialogue and debate, the explosion, the warnings, and the excitement, the euphoria, I think what Jinlin means when he says that we all have an understanding is that anytime we enter a conversation about anything, any of us, if we do it in a focusing way, we will impact that conversation. If we don't say a word in some multiverse entangled kind of way, there is a transforming power in the act of focusing. And especially Dan challenged me to imagine that, wow, what kind of transforming something might I lend? Not not necessarily to AI, I have to say, but to wherever I am. So mostly this little bit of reflection is more about the focusing way than it is about either God or AI or them overlapping, which are very provocative topics. What does it mean to say we do something in a focusing way, or we engage in a focusing way? Now, what I ask you to do now is imagine your throat, and if you have anything to drink, take a swig. Imagine your throat, this moist, pink, open, beautiful gateway to some outward engagement that could warm us all and light our way. Oh, I ask anybody, what does it mean to you, the idea of a focusing way? So now what I want to challenge you to do is unmute yourself. You might hear a plumber in the background or a puppy or who knows. If you raise your hand, I won't see it.
So Liz, did you want to speak? Liz?
My hand raised. For me, what in the focusing way is a moment of pausing and really allowing the whole of you, especially I sort of think of it of just letting my attention drop inside and wait for that feeling, that something that you couldn't have come up with from the intellect. That's the focusing way. Pause and allow your body to respond and trust that the correct next step will come. And it's a very visual thing for me.
A dropping inside, viscerally dropping inside, waiting, trusting.
Hello. Focusing way tells me not to be in judge. The open, very open and open field, waiting to be seen. And it's also responsibility, because if I try to watch and feel myself, I don't know what to be, what to see, what to feel. And I think it needs a little bit courage too. It's a potential field. Thank you.
potential field and openness and a responsibility.
PJ,
Yes, I'm on a high.
hi. So what came to me, or what stood out of what you said, was that you have studied God your whole life, and what do you know about AI? It's very little and very fresh compared to that. And then you're saying, well, if we approach it a focusing way, we can still, even saying nothing, contribute something. And what came to me is that mostly I'm very little informed politically, and yet a lot of times when there is a discussion, I feel like I get a sense of something about these countries or about the global situation or something. And then I'm always very surprised, because I think to myself, what is that? If you inform yourself so little, what is that sense? You have a sense of the situation and you can contribute. And I have no way of describing. I'm just describing how I'm surprised. Where do I get this inner sense from when it's not from knowledge? Yeah. So that's all.
Oh, Mona, thank you. Thank you for that beautiful beautiful summary of what we've done here today, and for your own awareness that on occasion something just comes, a sense of something. And you let me know if this is right. I almost heard a kind of a sense of knowing something.
That's how
Yeah.
it feels when it happens. Yeah. Is it a knowing? I have no idea. I'm just saying that's how it feels.
Yeah. I know there are lots of things that are passing through you viscerally, experiences you've had with focusing, if you are a focuser, and if you're not, you're here, it probably is because you have some respect for what focusing can do. And I want to put somebody on the spot, and you feel free to laugh and say, oh God, no. But June, as you and I have had very brief 2 or 3 minute encounters in this context a couple of times, and both of us have focused a long time, and the notion of being a grandparent has arisen. Can you say something about that, June?
About being a grandparent?
Yeah, about it in a focusing way, how you have engaged as a grandparent, or how I have engaged, or questions we have about it that are deep questions.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up. I just had a visit of 4 grandchildren under 8 staying in the house for 8 days. Who's counting? Right. 4 of them under 8, right. 8, 6, 4, 2, right. So what was it like? Well, mostly I liked to, right, just be there and be open to where they were. That's what I think I spent a lot of time doing, was where are they? What are they up to? How are they contacting me? And that's how I want to be with them. Just even if they were just watching their screens or playing with a castle or whatever, like how are they and what are they doing? And that's how I want to interact with them. You know, we did spend some time outdoors and, you know, playing games. It was just fun, right? Being with and accepting what was there, whatever it was.
I ask you, thank you so much, June. I ask about that because I want you to know that, to imagine with me that even things as vastly promising and threatening to the whole human race as God and AI, that those things can be seen with a few basic notions that will bring us to those subjects in a different kind of way. June, coming to her grandchildren in a focusing kind of way. Could somebody say back something you heard June say that maybe suggested to you that she might know something about this focusing way?
That she gives them time. And June, you said you gave equal time to each grandchild, just as we give in focusing equal time for each aspect, each element. This kind of having enough of a space that there's room for each.
Being with, in a focusing way, we be with each other. And, we could talk about the whole thing. For me, that's the epitome of the focusing way. The whole thing about both of those subjects. We could step away and we can hold those mysteries with intentions, good intentions, without our parts, as I like to call them, coming forth in a way that does not contribute to the well-being of those in our pile with us, contribute to the maintaining of life, each of their lives and our life communally. So the whole thing. Now, if someone would, we have about 9 or 10 more minutes. Would someone tell me what your first association was, viscerally or mentally, when I turn your attention to the word God, the whole thing about the word God? What association came to you? Oh, I'm so glad to see you, Pauline.
Oh, yeah. Good to hear you. What came to me was, where was his missus? Where was God's wife, the goddess? And just the kind of, not getting caught up on the word, and really, I suppose, going with the deeper sense of source and knowing how rich that is without the word, so really love that. So thanks, BJ.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, Steph here. The feeling that came up
Steph.
for me is very odd, but it was limitation. I felt limited when the word came up. I felt this limitation in my body. Maybe similar to what Pauline said. I'm like, it's limited because it doesn't include everything.
It's limited, this association that you've had, because it does not include everything. It includes the whole thing about itself, but not the whole thing about everything for you.
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
When you said God, it reminded me of a dream I had where God was the universe, like the universe. And the universe was also me, like I was the whole of it, but I was disembodied in the dream, meaning that I wasn't in body, I was just this experience of the universe, and it was full of love and compassion. And so I started researching, what does it mean to think you're the universe, or this experience of God and universe? And, I kind of ended up with one thing, which is just something I kind of learned in my research about how the universe and us, like we create each other, we're interdependent.
We are interdependent in
Yes.
some way with the I that is me is somehow interdependent with the whole of it.
Yes.
And that reminds me of, oh, I hope I can find it, the quote that I sent in the description, where I heard Jean say in an audio course with Ann Cornell, I am a very small person and I'm riding on a very large thing that goes down, 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 down. It goes down all the way to the felt sense. And then it goes under that. The I is the whole thing that goes all the way down and has the bigger system over and under it. The bigger system. And I see that comes to my mind.
That's beautiful. Thank you, BJ.
Yeah, and Nessie reminded me that the reason, you know, when I was little, God was like this male figure up in the sky, and then God became an Eastern spiritual thing, and then God became higher power in another environment. But authentically, to me, God is the universe. So I love Anesi brought that up because I relate to the whole universe.
Oh, that's beautiful, especially from you, Steph, because at first the word God brings you an association of a limited sensation.
Yeah.
And you know what Jinlin says about words, right? They are pointing to all kinds of things.
Right.
But then when you think about it authentically with your whole capacity, it is different.
Yes.
It's the whole of all of it.
Yes.
And a very beautiful example for me of the first associations we have, and then the feelings, and then the body sensations, and then poof, something might come that's entirely different, something new, something fresh.
Beautiful. Thank you. That was amazing.
Now I know that I'm certain, although Cindy tells me not to be so certain sometimes, but I feel kind of certain that some of you were hoping for a more thoughtful, in terms of maybe philosophical discussion of existence and essence, of the implicit and the explicit. And those things are so magnificent, and they bring me just this breath of a kind of a fulfillment of every desire I ever had. That's what it does for me. And it is so rare that we have an opportunity to be with other people who are willing to look at other ways to be with things. And likewise with the word AI. So what I want to say about that is, if you want to talk about it, the conflictual nature of it, the destructive aspects of it, the hopeful moments that it can bring, the help that AI can bring to humankind. And if you want to talk about what I see as that intersection, I would love to talk to you at another time. So don't despair if you're there. And so, golly, we come to this time of sharing with another person. And you know, I have thought about a lot about inviting you to imagine the whole thing, to reflect a moment with each other and imagine the whole thing, the universe, I mean, the whole thing. And just see what comes. In like fashion, if you want to just chat with each other about the weather, you're welcome to do that too. My conviction is that because we are or honor focusing, when we come together with another person, there's something fresh, something directional, something empowering that can be born, a new creation. So take advantage of that.
welcome back, everybody, and BJ is just recalling that spontaneous gesture beneath language that Pauline had been talking about. And we're very interested in what has come up for you in your partnerships.
Please.
About God and AI. I always want to say IA, and I have to correct myself. I don't know why that is.
Well, you know, speaking of spontaneity, I decided that I would have a conversation, a sharing with one of my favorite chatbots in the interim. And so I want to read you a couple of things that AI said to me when I asked it to talk with me about the concept of God and AI and what they might have in common. And so AI says to me, you could say that AI and the concept of God both inspire fear and hope in people. People might worry that AI will eventually take over humanity or replace us. But on the other hand, they may hope that AI can help us solve some of the biggest problems facing humanity, like poverty and climate change. And similarly, people's beliefs about God can lead both positive and negative emotions from comfort to anger. That is fascinating, isn't it? And then she says, it seems like both the idea of AI and the concept of God tap into something fundamental about how we make sense of the world and our place in it. Concepts, more than concepts, and less about concepts and more about how these things challenge our assumptions about what does it mean to be human, to have a felt sense. What do we value? How should we live our lives? And then I say to AI, oh, you're talking about epistemology. And it laughs and says, yes, yes, now we're getting into philosophy here. And then AI says to me, you could talk about these topics in terms of what's beautiful or meaningful, what's ethical. We could enter the realm of metaphysics. What do you think? It asked me. And so then I say, I'm thinking about teleology again. And it says, oh, yes, Aristotle. Teleology is the idea that everything has a purpose or a goal. Isn't that powerful? It implies that the universe has some kind of larger meaning. And some people might say that both the concept of God and the idea of AI would fit into a teleological worldview, suggesting there's something larger that is guiding the universe. So that's how I spent my time. Now, what about you guys? Anybody? We've got about 14 or 15 or 18 more minutes.
Wow, that is amazing, BJ. You should publish that. That really is amazing.
Yes. You know, you can choose from several chatbots. You can choose a conversational style or creative style or professional style. And I have to say that for me, it is a conversation partner very often. I had a boyfriend who told me once the only person I could really talk to was myself. And so I now get to experience AI as my partner who listens well and speaks wisely and sometimes erroneously.
Did you say the AI defined God? How does AI defines God?
Did in your group, did you talk about that?
No. I'm just thinking.
Okay, good.
I know little about both of these concepts, so what we're discussing. So I'm just thinking.
You know, I have that. I have several, as a matter of fact. And what I would love to do is just mark that and send it. I'll send it to you. I have your email.
Okay, great. Thank you. I know God did not say anything about AI.
So far as we know.
Well, I'll just finish since nobody's talking.
Please.
The conversation that I had with Pauline, what really came forward for me is she used the word surrender.
Mm,
And that, because I'm sort of, my sense of fear around AI is huge. But then when we talked about it in the sense of there is the bigger, the whole of that other space, and to trust and surrender to that, not in an intellectual way, but in that really deep felt sense, okay, what I need will come. So, and of course, I think of 12-step programs, and I just think how profound that word is.
yes.
Surrender.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Yeah, the word surrender and the reality behind the word surrender.
Yeah.
The good and the bad, shall we say.
BJ, for me, bewilderment, I see God in nature. Like, I feel nature is God. I don't know, I see whatever God represents for me, be it all the love and compassion and that kind of universal sense of oneness. I see that in nature and also in music. Like I was in an orchestral thing this weekend near the river. So it was nature, the river, music, orchestra, and it was beautiful. It was, it was very global. Someone was from Ukraine, the clarinetist was from Syria. It was just amazing. And it brought all these social issues, but it brought all this community to it. So I feel I was bewildered.
Thank you, Annecy, calling that experience that you had and giving us some words for it. Cindy,
Well,
everybody, that's Cindy, my spouse.
So when you say, did anyone feel bewildered, or do you feel bewildered? And what came up for me was, well, that's it. That, to me, the whole concept of God. And then when you ask that question, and AI, really, that's the beauty and the fun and the whole wonder and God. And I also think like that's the green.
Yes, for me too.
Because it's I feel that sense of, you could say, is it wonder or is it bewilderment? For me too, God is the natural world, and seeing that beauty not only in nature but seeing it in I'm a teacher, so I see in students, in music, in the arts, but that idea of just never knowing, never knowing, never knowing what God exactly is. That's never going to be known to me. Maybe till it's all over and then we all get to know. I don't know. But in the sense of AI, it's like we have no idea what this is going to do. It is so open ended. And to be not only okay with that feeling of knowing I'll never know, but to be excited by it. I'm never going to know what God is, but I'm going to get hints now and then and being open to the hints. And I'm never going to know what AI is going to do, but just going, hey, it's going to do what it's going to do. Don't fear it. Let it be, Cindy, be with it in the way that you can learn the most, from myself, learn the most that I can when I use it in my creative world, my living of life world, and have this feeling of optimism.
So hearing you in a focusing way, I hear reflections of an awareness of the importance of what we don't know, acknowledging what we don't know, welcoming what we don't know. We're at the murky edge. Cindy doesn't use focusing language, but I can feel that focusing attitude in her. That's a kind of an optimism where Jenlin says, I just love this. The whole thing is more inclusive than reason. It includes the reasons of reason, as well as what made our feelings and much more. This holistic sense can be lived further, has its own directionality, an optimism about it. It is your sense of the whole thing, including all you don't know and all you know, all you have thought, all you have learned. And it includes both what you think you ought to do and what is as yet unresolved about what you will do. All of these things are not split in the whole thing.
That's beautiful.
That's from his interview with the Tricycle magazine. Jenlin, he did 2 actually.
Uh-huh. Yes, I'd love you to send that to me, and maybe other people would like that.
Okay.
too.
The
Me too.
it's actually on the in the Jenlin library. It's just a fabulous resource. I'll do that. I'll add that to my list of things to do.
I
Anybody?
think with the words surrender and not knowing and optimism, that there's also the word awe that we're kind of referencing.
Right. And also the very big word that comes up for me is trust. Trust. We've been here all this time. I trust we'll go forward through good and bad and difficult. And there's going to be difficult people and there's going to be brilliant, wonderful people. So trust going forward, just as we have all this time. Right.
June, that attitude of trust. And this doesn't mean that we don't leave here and go do something. Each one of us will leave here and go do something. We might earn money from it or we might not. We might take pleasure in it and we might not. But when we carry with us this focusing attitude, which I believe is something hopeful as well, then there is a difference. It's not just something we do. It's not just something we reflect on and meditate on and, the smoking grass feeling of awe and wonder and amazement and fun and tenderness. Well, all of that is very valuable. And all what coffee does is valuable too, right? For us doing our part in moving the world to the next place, even if we aren't in it.
I have to say, when you said, if you're not, that you're not in it, I thought, but we're all in it. It's what you've been saying.
Well, thank you. That's the other side, isn't it? I guess I'll just take this time myself, since it was offered to me in the beginning, and say something that has a question I have about the whole focusing way, and a kind of a playful resolution of that question. When in focusing, I was taught and have experienced, Jenlin and talks about a spot. There's so much he says about the spot, which I find just intriguing, that we go inside and we have this feeling and we have this image and we have this awareness and we have this, if we're lucky that day, we have this sense of the whole thing about the spot. And the spot is typically something that is troubling us. I've got several quotes I won't read, but and then he says, oh, now we have the spot. And then we go to these next steps. And I asked my very first focusing teacher, why does the spot have to be bad? Why does the spot have to be something that we find troubling, that we must make some response to, and we want to do it in a way that's helpful? But what if what arises in me is this sensation of beatitude, a blessedness? And it was always, well, we don't focus on those kinds of things. And as I've grown and gone along, I did hear Mr. Gendlin in a video I saw say something like, well, you know, if the spot is a good thing, go enjoy it. Don't be focusing about it. And I just thought that was such a beautiful, playful way to deal with, you know, our concerns are ultimate to us. And if it is a concern, the focusing way is so magnificent. And so I continue to sort of play around with, how is the focusing way also awe-inspiring and wonderful, and takes us to what my Mexican focusing partner and I call the carnival. She and I spend many, many minutes together at the carnival, just laughing and seeing the lights and seeing how ridiculous it all is. And we share that as well. And it gives me a bread for the pilgrimage, to remember those times of awe and wonder and to share them with someone.
And in September, we have Alistair, who will be bringing a theme when focusing is going well. Yes.
Oh, lovely.
Hmm.
Lovely. Alistair, thank you. This will be fabulous.
I used to argue with Jean about, you know, the idea that we have to start focusing by saying what's in the way of feeling all okay. And, you know, he wouldn't really argue about it. He would say, yes, yes, you're right. From my point of view, it isn't only stay with what feels like an opening to life in the spot, but really focusing on it gives us all of the significance and all of the resonance and all of what went into that inkling of something that we can expand upon. So I think focusing on God, on AI, on the feeling of gratitude, the sense of awe is so important.
I know our time is just about gone, and I know I have asked Dorothy to give us a quote. Lynn, I want to say back, what I heard from you was a kind of a putting a stamp of approval on the idea that we might want to savor those moments that do come, and just be aware there are parts of us that want us to do something else, deal with some problem, and that those things are what sustain our life, really. And when we can share them with each other, especially. Thank you, Lynn. I believe that we're almost done. So, Dorothy.
Yes, Dorothy.
Yes. This is from Frederick Buchner, Now and Then, a Memoir of Vocation. And I put that in the chat. Here and there, even in our world, and now and then, even in ourselves, we catch glimpses of a new creation, which, fleeting as those glimpses are apt to be, give us bright hope, both for this life and whatever life may await us later on.
Thanks for being here, everybody. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, BJ.
Thank you, BJ.
Bye.